Hello sorcerers and cursed spirits, welcome to another video. We'll be covering Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 231 and 232. As usual, there will be timestamps, and yeah, let's dive in. Chapter 231 starts off with Kusakabe asking who's ever eaten a punch from Gojo, to which Yuta and Hakari say they've been punched by Gojo. Hakari shares his experience by telling us it feels like you've been hit by counterattack. Now, counterattacks aren't hits you are typically prepared for, making them have that element of surprise. A good amount of time, you are using your opponent's momentum against them to leverage your own hits, which typically make them more effective. Kusakabe explains Gojo's physical hits further. He says Gojo's fists are enhanced with cursed energy, and on the exact moment of impact, Gojo adds his lapse blue technique, essentially absorbing the space around the opponent, which increases the effectiveness of his hits. Yuta and Hakari even admit it made them vomit. We switch to Itadori, who even remembers a conversation he had with Nanami, Lord bless his soul. And what Nanami said was Gojo can easily output critical hits with every jab. Kusakabe adds from here on he doesn't know what Gojo is doing. And remember, in the last chapter, Gojo and Sukuna basically had their brains fried and can no longer use reverse curse technique or domain expansion. So now they have to depend heavily on hand-to-hand combat. Man, just look at this smiling while happily taking out the trash. Then he tosses this man and uses blue to put rocks around him, essentially forming this rock sphere with Sukuna in the middle. But Sukuna maneuvers out quite easily and dodges a follow-up kick from Gojo. But he didn't completely dodge the kick though, because Gojo still whacks his head with the back of his foot while suspended in midair. Gojo then moves so fast he starts creating after images, reminding me of that one time in Hunter x Hunter where Killua did something similar. But the King of Curses once again sees through him and punches the real Gojo across the street. Then Gojo hits the Itachi emote immediately as he lands on the traffic light. Now remember, the 10-handed wheel is active, and you all know what that means. It means he is adapting to Gojo's technique, because remember, he is using blue in his punches, and since blue is part of his technique, Sukuna will soon adapt to Gojo's innate technique. But more on that later, I'll get to it in just a second. By the way, if you want to know more about Mahoraga and how his powers work in great detail, there will be a link in the video somewhere or in the description where I cover all of that in depth. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It's completely free and you can, reverse the action anytime. But over here, we really appreciate when you do like and subscribe. It shows us that the content we are making is heading in the right direction and you guys like it. So anyway, back to the video. We then see the wheel turn as Sukuna is still smiling, and Gojo deduces the process of adaptation is interrupted when Sukuna uses domain amplification because the wheel turns black. Let me explain. Each time he hits Gojo, he cannot exactly hit Gojo because Limitless is on. So he has to use domain amplification to hit Gojo. But when he does use domain amplification, it turns off the wheel temporarily. That's when it turns black, meaning that time when he is hitting Gojo actively, he is not adapting to Gojo's technique. That is exactly what Gojo deduces. And yes, Sukuna can use domain amplification and not domain expansion because that part of his brain isn't cooked yet. So the light apparently turns green and they clash again. Sukuna at this time grabs the traffic light and throws it at Gojo, and it doesn't hit Gojo due to Infinity. We then see a statement from Mei saying Mahoraga adapted to Infinite Void, which is Gojo's domain. And remember, the wheel was out during the first half of the fight, which implies it takes several spins for the wheel to adapt to Gojo's techniques. Because like I said, the wheel was already active during the domain clashes they had earlier in the first half of the fight. Hakari and Kusakabe then deduced that it would actually take multiple spins for Mahoraga to adapt to any of Gojo's techniques. And Gojo immediately confirms when he tells Sukuna he needs a total of 4 spins for Mahoraga to adapt, and it has already spun once, leaving it at 3 spins for Mahoraga to adapt, which shocks Mei, Itadori, Hakari and Kusakabe. Sukuna now says we have a countdown for when you will get your ass kicked, and Gojo whips out the ugliest smile I have ever seen in my entire life. Gojo then reassures he will beat Sukuna dead before the 3 spins. Angel watching says she hopes Gojo hasn't forgotten about Megumi, and Itadori says he probably has, and this mean ass nigga Kashimo says it's all good. Let them forget. And that's where chapter 231 ends. Now for chapter 232, what the hell? Ladies and gentlemen, make I no lie, it's not looking good. But let's just get into the thick of it. So the chapter begins and what we have is the wheel has just spun the second time. with Kusukabe and Itadori showing clear signs of worry. And remember, the wheel needs 4 spins to adapt to infinity, meaning we have 2 spins left. We then see Sukuna jumping and weaving, patiently waiting for the adaptation process to be completed. And we can see Gojo is putting his best effort into trying to win this fight. He goes as far as to enhance blue to make individual orbs that destroy everything around, which once again Sukuna dodges, right before getting a kick from Gojo mid-air, and as he falls, the wheel spins again. Now it's 1 more spin left. Everyone is on the edge of their seats, but not me though. I was hiding from my boss reading this at work. Then Itadori asks a question which we've all been thinking of. Well, at least I have been thinking of. How is the adaptation process taking place, and what are the criteria required? Is it time or experience? And what this question basically means is, do the attacks need to take place consecutively, which is over and over again, before Mahoraga adapts, or it just needs to get attacked once, and by it I mean Mahoraga needs to get attacked once, and then after a certain period the adaptation process is complete and Mahoraga is fully adapted? And this question was basically left unanswered for now, as Kusukabe himself speculates before Kashimo concludes by saying both scenarios are indeed possible. And I am also conflicted myself, because the chapter started and we see the wheel spin. Even though there wasn't any visible contact, we did see the wheel spin. And remember, back during the domain battles, we saw the wheel in the shadows and it was actively adapting to Gojo's infinite void during those domain battles. So honestly, it is unclear whether it needs attacks to keep taking place or it needs time. Anyways, we then switched to a panel where Sukuna was thrown into a building, and Gojo schemes on catching Sukuna lacking by blasting him with red as a surprise attack, since he has been using blue all this while. He expects that Sukuna will only be prepared for blue, and that's when he does it. He blasts Sukuna with red, but the wheel quickly turns black, indicating he used domain amplification, which is confirmed here through the dialogue shown on the panel. The King of Curses starts taunting Gojo, saying, such sloppiness.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, such sloppiness. You lost your cool after your hand was red, right? Gojo then replies by saying, red hasn't exploded yet. And then Sukuna literally gets back shots from Gojo's red. And we found out Gojo actually made red route through the buildings, similar to what we saw him do with blue when he was fighting Toji in season 2 of the anime. In that moment, Gojo, not wasting even a second, closes the distance between him and Sukuna, and he lands a black flash. Look at Yuta and Kusukabe opening their mouths in shock, and Sukuna's eyes turn white. He has been incapacitated yet again by Gojo. The 8-handed wheel falls to the ground, and we can finally say Gojo has won. Wait a minute. Just wait a minute. The shadow. Very familiar hands are now emerging from the shadows. Gojo is suddenly held in place as his student screams "Sensei." Mahoraga emerges once again, and this time he slashes Gojo right in the chest, and the chapter ends with a cliffhanger.